tonight. So no matter how many speeches we give along the way, which for myself is way over 60, the icebreaker, I think, is always your most special. Perhaps your hardest, but the one that you'll remember more than probably any other speech you gave. So those of you that are going to give you should be very proud of yourself, and also know that everybody in this room is here to support you. Our first speaker is Ivy. And this is your first speech?
No.
Okay.
I was supposed to do my icebreaker today, but I jumped ahead and I did it a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, all right.
So I am actually doing my second speech.
Good for you.
Organizer speech.
All right. And sorry you were here, I wasn't able to get the information from you, and the title of your speech.
Growing up Latina.
Okay, and it is 5 to 7? Okay. Good for you. You're ahead of schedule. All right. Welcome, Ivy.
Hello, fellow Toastmasters. My name is Ivy Woodruff, and like I just said, today I'm actually going to give my second speech in the Competent Communicator Manual. Before I begin, I'd like to kind of apologize for being a little late. As you see, I came in husbandless. My wonderful husband tore his Achilles tendon on Friday and is in crutches and laid up in bed. So getting here on time was a bit of a challenge. He was trying to make it and didn't quite happen. So hopefully he'll be here next week. So the title of my speech was Growing Up Latina. And the reason I wanted to speak about this today is because I was having a conversation the other day with a couple of friends, and it came up, this idea of like how different it is when you realize that the way that you grow up and the way that your home life is very different than the way other people grow up. And I was fortunate enough to be raised in Miami, Florida. Miami, or as I like to call it, the Republic of South Florida, is its own country. It's very different from anywhere in the United States. It has a very high population of Hispanic Americans, and I grew up in a very Hispanic part of Miami called Hialeah. Now, I'm Colombian, Hialeah is very Cuban, but I've been in this country since I was about a year old. And so, biculturalism for me was completely normal. We spoke Spanish at home, we spoke Spanish in school. It was very normal for your friends to ask you, hey, where are you from? And most responses were something like, I'm Colombian, I'm Dominican and Cuban, I'm Ecuadorian and Puerto Rican. And what that means is, my mom's Ecuadorian, my dad's Puerto Rican, I'm Ecuadorian, Puerto Rican. That's what it is. So as kids, you kind of grow up with this idea that you embrace very much your Latino heritage, your culture, your language. You eat certain foods at home, but because all of my classmates are in the same kind of boat, it seems pretty normal. So it doesn't take away from the fact that many of these kids are born in the United States, American citizens, born to American citizen parents. They do speak English and Spanish at home. Sesame Street was actually my first English teacher. So we watch English television, but we have a slightly different skew to our American life and our American dream. So it wasn't until I went away to college that I really realized that there was a difference between me and everyone else. So I decided to go to Florida State University, which is the great capital, Tallahassee, of the state. And my roommate, Megan, was from Winter Haven, Florida. And I thought nothing of it. And in Miami, we have our own fun words and language, and apparently in accents, which I also was not aware of until I went to college. And I would start speaking and people would say, oh, you're from Miami. And I'm like, how do people know that? Like, do I have it like written somewhere? And they were like, oh, it's your accent. And I'm like, my accent? I have an accent? But, or they would say things like, you speak English really well. And I'm like, am I not supposed to? I'm confused. Or you have an accent, but it's not, you don't have a Latina accent, or it's not thick. And I'm like, again, am I supposed to? Should I? So that is when I arrived to college. I started to realize other people's perception of what it meant to be Latina in the United States, of what it meant to be Hispanic, a Hispanic American. And I got it on kind of both sides. So the Americans would say those types of things to me. They'd ask me questions like, do you speak Mexican? Mexican is not a language. Do you know, is Colombia an island? No, it's in South America. You know, the obvious Colombian questions. Do I know Pablo Escobar? To which I respond, he's my uncle, sends me a Christmas card with some cash every year. To the very mean, why don't immigrants learn English before they come to the United States? To which I would have to explain that many people come here who do not have much money and who do not have resources. And it's not the same as sending your child to boarding school in France, where they're probably taking some French classes before you send them. And so I used to get very angry at first, and then I realized most people just don't know. The only interaction they have with a Latina person is Jennifer Lopez on a movie screen, you know, playing a maid in Made in Manhattan. That kind of thing. You start to look at the images in the media, you know, the typical Latina, she's either sexy, she's a maid, she has a very thick accent, she doesn't speak English. It's the same thing everywhere you see it. And so when people are coming to me and asking these questions and saying these things, they're not being mean. They don't mean to be mean-spirited. They just don't know. They're not aware that I've been here for 33 years out of the 34 years of my life. I'm probably a little more American than I am anything else. And I'm just the same as everybody else. The last piece of enlightenment that I got in college was when I would run into the Colombian international students. And I grew up going to Colombia every summer. 2 months, that was my parents' way of childcare. Right? They would send us to my grandmother's house in Colombia every summer for 2 months. And it was great. It was a wonderful experience. So I got to experience both cultures all the time. But over there, being with my family and friends, I kind of was a little bit protected. And yeah, they would call me La Gringa, which is kind of a derogatory term for Americans that Spanish people use. But in college, the Colombians, the international students would say, oh, you've been here since you're not really Colombian. So it was this cultural identity crisis where I wasn't American enough for the Americans and I wasn't Colombian enough for the Colombian. And so I did learn in college that instead of getting angry and upset, that I just needed to teach people that growing up Latina in the United States makes you a little different, but it also gives you so much richness and so many rich experiences, and you just can share them with everyone. So, thank you.